and welcome to another edition of Nashville Forward, a community affairs program presented by Cumulus Media. My name is Matt Murphy, and I'm proud to be your host on today's edition of Nashville Forward. Our goal is to introduce you or reintroduce you to people in our community in Nashville, Tennessee, and beyond that make a difference in the business community, in charitable giving, and otherwise are very important players in our world. And we could not have asked for a better guest in that regard than our guest today. His name is Blair Durham. He is with Durham Injury Law, and he joins us on Nashville Forward to talk about everything that they do and their presence in Nashville, their time in Nashville. And it is a pleasure, Blair, to have you on the show today.
Same here. I'm really excited and honored to be here.
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, I feel like I know you. We just got a chance to meet a little before we started the broadcast because we've seen you so much. I mean, folks that see you on the show recognize you from the many, many years of commercials that you've done with your dad, Bart, of course, and now you're doing them by yourself. But it's a pleasure to have you in just to talk about Nashville and everything you guys have done for the community.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm from here. I was born in 1970, and Nashville was a very different place than it is in 2025. But I love Nashville. We're the volunteer state. Nashville has such a giving heart and is different than a lot of other cities in a lot of really cool ways. I always think of one example. I've got a buddy who runs a fund that moved here from Memphis, and he was shocked at how open the blue bloods of Nashville entrepreneurs were, where he came from a society where people that are closed off and don't want to welcome new people and new ideas. And that's never been the Nashville that I've known. So
there are certain cities, I had it said to me years ago, being in radio and you move around a lot, it was told to me that there are certain cities that they ask, well, why in the world wouldn't people want to live here? And there are certain cities where the first question they ask is, where were you born? Here, right? And if your answer is I wasn't, then they kind of turn their back on you.
Yeah.
But Nashville's been a wonderful and welcoming place. But the unicorns like to remind you that they're unicorns.
Yeah, I think that's true. Anytime you get such a big influx of people from all over the country, we're getting L.A. and New York quite a bit. I guess there's some pride is the reason that the unicorns remind you because, Nashville has been intentional since the 40s about being a good and welcoming city. It's well known, but there were a group of people that were business leaders that got together in the 40s and 50s and said, hey, let's shape this city in a positive way. Let's make it a great place to work, great place to do business, and a great place to live and raise a family. So Nashville's been intentional. I guess the unicorns are proud of that.
I mean, is it fair to say when I first got here and you kind of start doing a dive into the city and into the region, it felt like somehow Nashville missed, and maybe this was intentional on their part, missed some of the unrest of the 60s. It was such a part of Birmingham, Alabama's history where I was for 20 years. Sure. Obviously, Memphis, and you can name the areas in that period of time. And maybe I'm just missing it. Maybe there were some issues involved, but it feels like Nashville kind of was better prepared to kind of overcome some of those things.
I think Fisk and TSU played a major role in us missing it and not being the epicenter. We had the counter down at Woolworth's incident, but what we also had where we had some pretty influential white people that were involved with the Kennedy administration during that time. We had John J. Hooker and Siegenthaler. And Siegenthaler, who there are buildings all over Vanderbilt that are named after him. He's one of the best public speakers that ever lived. But they were really good buddies with JFK, and Siegenthaler was on the Freedom Rides. He got the crap beat out of him. And so there were influential people that were on the right side of history that were from Nashville, and I think that kind of helped us belay a little bit of the unrest.
So you obviously everyone knows you from television commercials or when they need you. I mean, I'm sure that you're the go-to company to call if you have an issue involving personal injury. But you and your dad were such a part of my introduction to Nashville, Tennessee. I wanted to start the conversation by talking a little bit about your dad.
Yeah.
You lost him about a year and a half ago?
Yeah, April 9th. April 9th of next year will make 2 years. So
Yeah.
yeah, he was such a character, and I feel bad for people that didn't know him. And he was a character. He messed with me. I mean, our relationship was messing with each other,
Mm-hmm.
but in a great way. But that's how he lived his life. He didn't have much fear. When he was a kid, he's from Ripley, Tennessee, which is a small town in West Tennessee near Jackson. He ended up going to boarding school in Miami. He learned to fly a plane when he was at boarding school, and so he would fly back and forth from Ripley to Miami.
Wow.
And
Wait, how old was he?
16.
Wow.
So this character, it's starting to get dark. He lands on the roadway in Hamilton, Alabama. He taxis his airplane to a hotel, and Hamilton is like a lot of small towns. It has a town square. And so he's walking around the town square, and it's hot, so all the doors are open to the stores, and he hears in the drugstore there's a radio show going on, and they're talking about a plane landing in Hamilton, Alabama, and checking into a motel. And so he walks up to the druggist that's there and says, "That is me." And the druggist, being a Southern hospitality type guy, says, "Well, check out of the hotel. You stay with me, and you go to the high school football game with us tonight," which in a lot of towns in Alabama, that's the major event.
Yeah.
And so he did and had dinner with his family. And the next day, the Alabama Highway Patrol cleared the roadway for him to take off and fly back to Ripley.
It's a different time. That's a
Yeah.
great story, though.
I know. I mean, those he's got a ton of those stories.
So he grew up in West Tennessee.
Yeah.
And I mean, did you guys ever talk about his desire to become a lawyer?
Yeah. So my grandfather, who started the Bank of Ripley, was also a lawyer.
Okay.
And his first job as a lawyer was practicing with his dad. And I think my dad, from a young age, always wanted to be a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
He went to FSU. He was a Kappa Sig with Burt Reynolds.
Oh, wow.
And Burt Reynolds stole his girlfriend, so they weren't friends anymore after that.
I bet Bert had a lot of those stories. But
I bet he did too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he went to law school. He started off at UT, got sick, ended up doing night school, got his law license, practiced with his dad. His dad owning the bank and practicing law. My mom worked at the Bank of Ripley and met my dad because his office was above the bank. And my grandfather, unfortunately, I never knew him, but they were at a high school football game. And my mom grew up with a sharecropper as a father. And my grandfather had been kind of harsh on their relationship just because he didn't think she came from the right stock.
Mm-hmm.
And when he figured out she did, they went to a Ripley High School football game. And my grandfather had a heart attack. And the last words he said were to my father, "You better marry this girl."
Oh, wow.
Which he did, thankfully for me.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so, but after my dad passed away, or my grandfather passed away, my dad got a job with the U.S. Attorney's Office in Memphis, Tennessee.
And this was fascinating as I was reading a little about your dad's story, that he was involved, I mean, intimately involved in the beginnings of the investigation after the assassination of Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
Walk me through his involvement with the U.S. Attorney's Office.
So at that point in Memphis, in the U.S. Attorney's Office, there were 9 attorney generals. There was a attorney general and 9 assistants. And he was with Henry Klein, who still practices in Memphis, in Jamaica when MLK got shot. And federal agents flew him back to Memphis. And he had the gun in his office. In my dad fashion, he said, what you don't realize, because you've never done it, is when you're a U.S. attorney, the FBI is your investigating force.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, so we had all these FBI agents everywhere, and that was his case.
Did he was he ever frustrated with some of the aftermath of that case in terms of some of the conspiracy theories that came out years and years later? Or, I mean, is there any, I don't know, is there any, was there any speculative truth or whatever?
He might have started some of those conspiracy theories, to be honest with you.
Right.
No, I think he felt like they did their job.
Right.
He was pretty confident that the right thing was done.
And so he left there and came to Nashville to be a part of the AG's office in Nash?
He was the district attorney's office in Nashville.
Very good.
And he worked there for a while. And my dad was into a lot of things, but he really loved cars. And he started the Middle Tennessee Ferrari Club, which was a really cool way for me to grow up because we'd rent tracks and take Ferraris around all over. Yeah, the South. But he was working at the time with Justice Koch, who is now the dean of the Nashville Law School, but also a Tennessee Supreme Court justice. And he was working with Justice Koch, and he said, I'm going to start my own firm, and one day I'm going to buy a Ferrari. And that's exactly what he did.
Nice. So that was back in so he
early 70s.
Yeah. So and the Durham law firm started, I guess, in 75.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yep.
So you're just a wee lad at that point.
Yeah.
But that's not an insignificant thing, right? To leave what I imagine was a fairly well-paying job in the district attorney's office. You're doing good for your community, and to branch out. I mean, people think, oh well, you just snap your fingers and you got a client list. That's kind of not the way that it is.
Not at all. And a lot of being a DA, he would take criminal appointments. So if people can't afford a lawyer, judges will assign a lawyer for them, and they get paid not very much, but you also build a reputation. And so he was very heavily involved in criminal defense law, to the point, and in my dad's fashion. So his first big client was an arsonist, and it was kind of a famous case in Nashville in the 70s. And my dad's personality, he would get on the elevator at the courthouse with a bunch of other lawyers, and he'd be in there with his arsonist who everybody had seen on the news. And my dad looked at him and said, "You don't have a bomb with you now, do you?" And that he always had fun. He would write fake numbers of what he was charging his criminal clients on the back of a manila folder and go up to the current district attorney to talk about working a deal, just to mess
so he could see the numbers?
Yeah, so he could see the numbers.
That's good. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how have, in your experience, in your life experience, and I want to get to your decision to kind of follow your dad and your granddad's path, but I would expect that the practice of law has changed pretty considerably.
Yeah, it certainly has. It used to be that every case was tried. And frequently in car wreck cases, most of the time, it's the insurance company that's going to write the check at some point. But the adjusters would sit in the trial, and if they felt it was going well for their side, they wouldn't make any offers. But if they felt it was going bad, they would make offers at trial. And mediation came along, which is a neutral third party that's got some salt and some years and experience of knowing what juries do, is the mediator, and most cases now get resolved that way. So we have 800-plus cases. We try 3 to 4 a year, and not because we don't want to try them. It's just it has changed that much.
Oh, well, I mean, that's I want to talk about that because, I mean, I've been told that the figure is, 90%? I mean, is that a fair estimate of, like, the number of times that you go to trial, 10% versus the other 90% where you sit in a mediation and you figure out the appropriate compensation? Or
I think it's even higher percentage that get settled. And there's a reason for that. The state minimum insurance limit in Tennessee is $25,000. Well, if I hit you and you go to Vandy for a day, you've got $100,000 in meds.
Right.
And if there's only $25,000 and there's nothing more that you can get no matter what, then that case is going to settle.
Right.
So there are a lot of factors that make that percentage number higher, but the biggest factor is mediation. They call it alternative dispute resolution.
Right.
And frequently, the cases you try have a problem. Otherwise, they would have gotten resolved for the right amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
But my office is blessed. One thing that I will give myself credit for is that I try to hire people that are better at this than I am. And the trial lawyers that we have at our office, while I love trial, are incredibly good and way better at trying cases than I am.
Well, I don't know about that. You've been doing it a long time.
Yeah.
I don't think you give yourself the credit you deserve. But at what point did you always know when you were young? I mean, your dad's doing this. You watch as this is. I mean, you probably watching from afar, I guess. But you're aware of what your dad's doing. At what point did you realize this is for me? Was it before military service? After military service?
I think it was before. So I started going to his office when I was about 7 years old. When I was 12, I was the receptionist at his office. And at one point in my life, and then later I would do job interviews when I was 15, 16, which is completely improper.
Right.
But I was calling American Airlines to make a reservation, and I gave my name, and the woman said, "You interviewed me at your dad's office and didn't give me a job." So my dad's office has been a part of me since, literally since I was 7 years old. And I think I always knew I wanted to do it. But in my young mind, I really wanted to get involved in sports.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up playing football and tried to play baseball. I was terrible. And basketball. And, I wanted to figure out a way to get involved. And then I went to Alabama and failed out of school.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much. I was a bookie in a fraternity at Alabama, got in some trouble, and my dad made what turned out to be, knowing now as a parent, had to be one of the hardest decisions he ever made. But he came and said, "Look, you're going to join the Marine Corps or you're cut off for the rest of your life."
Wow.
And I thought he was bluffing. So we go to the Marine Corps recruiting office, and you take a test called the ASVAB for enlisted soldiers and sailors and Marines. And I did really well on it. And the recruiter, what you would think of as a Marine Corps sergeant, said, "Blair, you could do anything in the Marines you want." And thinking my dad was bluffing, I said, "Well, if I join the infantry, is there a good chance I'll see combat?" And the sergeant said, "Yeah, we're America's 911. There's a great chance you'll see combat." And I said, before I said, "Sign me up for that," my dad looked at me and he said, "Well, this is your decision, son." And so I said, "Sign me up," and joined the infantry. And as I was leaving to go to Parris Island for boot camp, my dad showed up at this place where you get on a bus to go to the airport, and with my golf bag, and said, "Son, do you think you'll need these in Parris Island?"
I don't think so,
No,
Dad.
I don't. But the Marines was the best thing that ever happened to me. Parris Island, it turned what you don't know when you enlist is that Parris Island is the easy part. It's you're in a fishbowl, so it's kind of protected. Once you get out into the real world where real bullets fly, it's a totally different thing. But esprit de corps is a real thing. You don't see once you start training, especially as a grunt or an infantryman, you don't see color, you don't see race, you see your brothers and sisters in arms that have their back, or have your back, and you have their back, and it's just you sweat and bleed together, and
It was probably
grows you up.
late 80s, early 90s?
Early 90s, yeah.
In that
Yeah.
time frame. How long were you in?
3.5 years. I got out 6 months early to finish school. I finished school at Belmont, and then went to law school at Pepperdine. And I'll tell you, after the Marine Corps, those were so easy. It's just life, especially school, became a blast because I actually was interested and wanted to do it. So I graduated from law school early. I went to Pepperdine in Malibu, which was pretty awesome. Took the California bar. And I took the California bar because the real lawyer behind the Aaron Brockovich case, not the British guy in the movie, is a guy named Tom Girardi. And so his son and I were going to start a practice together, and Tom was just going to feed his cases. Tom is now in jail because he was the lawyer in the Malaysian Air case that his wife coincidentally was on Beverly Hills Housewives, and he stole the money that was in his trust account from the Malaysian Air case to support that lifestyle.
Got it.
So
Got it.
thankfully, but my buddy, his son, at the time that I was going to partner with, I took the bar in February, and he took the bar in February for the 5th time, and he failed it again. And so the writing was on the wall.
So your plan of action after Pepperdine was to stay in California initially?
At least for a while. And eventually my dad ended up buying a place in Malibu, and that was his happy place. It's Malibu, if you haven't been there, it's a city of 9,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
It's a small town, and once you're there, it's super welcoming, but you also have the ocean and the beach, and it's just phenomenally beautiful.
Right. So I'm just curious, was it an intentional thing on your part that you didn't want to come back to Nashville to be a part of your dad's firm, or at what point did you decide maybe that's the best course of action?
I wanted to
Kind of do your own thing?
do my own thing, and the truth is, and I'm sorry if you're a young lawyer listening to this, when you're a newbie lawyer, you don't really contribute anything. You're somebody is teaching you and you're learning, but what you're actually giving isn't very much. You work hard and all those things, and I'm not discounting that. But as far as being an asset for where you are, you're not that big of an asset. And so I wanted to have my own firm, have a business mind, as most lawyers get made fun of because most of us traditionally are not great business people, same with doctors.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to kind of cut my own chops and figure it out. But then my dad had some health issues, and he and I have always been super close. Like any parent's child, we had moments where, we didn't see eye to eye. But for the most part, I always knew he was very proud of me and loved me, and he said things and showed me things to let me know that. So I kind of felt like he needed me, and I ran back home.
So was there ever a point when you were in the Marines where you were kind of dog cussing your dad's like, what did this old man get me into?
Yeah. I was stationed at a naval submarine base guarding Trident nuclear missiles outside of Seattle, Washington. And they had what's called the limited area where they store the missiles in bunkers. And I was walking with an M16 on my shoulder on Christmas night, and it's raining, cats and dogs. Excuse me. And I was thinking two things. Dad, you SOB.
Right.
Why? And then the second thing is, I will never be in this position again in my life.
Right.
No matter what it takes.
So you get back to Nashville. Around what time was that when you came back to Nashville?
2001.
Okay.
Took the bar here, passed it, started working with him. In the early 2000s, my dad had pretty much done all PI. He in the late 70s, he argued against the Bar Association and the Tennessee Supreme Court to make advertising legal in the state of Tennessee, and he won the Supreme Court case and was the first lawyer to advertise in Tennessee.
Why? And I'm fascinated by this because I read this that he was the guy that opened that door.
He was.
And, some people listening or watching might think for better or worse, and we'll talk about that in a second, but why was it prior to then that they just consider advertising to be unseemly, or why was it that it was illegal?
I think it's exactly that it was unseemly, and same was true in medicine. You couldn't advertise as a doctor or medical practice or a lawyer. The idea was that it was this learned profession, and that advertising would cheapen it and cheapen the quality of work that would be done for people. But he knew he always had a marketing mind. Every commercial that was ever created before he passed away was his idea, and some of them were super wacky and totally, out of left field, but they worked, and he had a lot of fun doing it. But he knew that he could do a good job. At that time, he had a firm that did a lot of different things. PI kind of came later. Personal injury kind of came later. And my favorite picture that I have, it's in my office, is him in an RV at the fairgrounds here in Nashville with a sign that said, "Consultation $10 will be applied to your fee." And there are cows and feathers and everything else around him. But he knew that the real thing, and I'm selling him short by not saying this to start, is he knew that there were a lot of people that did not have access to justice.
Mm-hmm.
He knew that a lot of people were intimidated by the law and by lawyers. Mm-hmm. And he wanted to break that bond of everyday man and attorney. I think he grew up with small town values, and he wanted to bring that to the law. And he just knew that there were people that didn't have or felt like they couldn't have access to the courtroom and access to justice, and that was his driving force.
Well, and it breaks down, it occurs to me that it kind of breaks down this, what was probably almost a barrier, where if something happens to me, I don't know where to go. Right. I don't know lawyers. You know, if I'm just an average Joe,
sure.
Where if I see it on a billboard or if I see it in a television advertisement, I'm aware, oh, wait, there's people out there that are willing to sit down with me and talk to me without charging me money, and let me know if there is something here that I need to do to get justice.
Yeah, and on that note, there's a reason I don't rarely wear a coat and tie in a commercial. Usually I'm in a blazer, not always, but that was his thinking. He's like, we want to be approachable. You don't want people to feel like they can't talk to you freely and honestly about what's going on in their world and their life. And if we're really going to help them, we need to have the ability to feel like they feel that they can connect to us in a real way.
So when I was in Alabama, I'm just get around to this. In Alabama, there's advertising, obviously,
sure.
And there is nationwide now, but you have to have a legal disclaimer. And it was always odd to me, and I remember it because I knew a guy who was a personal injury attorney in Alabama that I did work with, and as an endorser, at the end of my commentary, I would have to say no legal representation is made that the quality of legal service presented is greater than the quality of legal service presented by other lawyers, and I remember it because I had to say that, but I'm like, but I just spent the last 2 minutes telling you that this guy's better than every other attorney. And it's funny. It's almost, I guess it's funny how these things happen differently in different states or whatever, where they create these little rules.
Oh, yeah. So after he started advertising, the Tennessee Bar Association filed a suit with the Supreme Court saying that he was doing it outside of the letter of the law. So he had to fight that and win again. And what you're talking about, those disclaimers, I think we've come a long way. As a matter of fact, today there's a Zoom call with the Tennessee Supreme Court, and the question is, excuse me, whether non-lawyers should be able to own law firms. And that's happened in a couple of states out west, which has made private equity now a thing in the legal field where it's never been before.
Uh-huh.
But it's taken the legal community a while to sort of mirror the business community. We're not supposed to have paid celebrities in ads. Well,
right.
If you've seen TV, you've seen Morgan & Morgan's commercials. They've got a ton of them.
Right.
Technically, that's against the rules, but we're evolving, and hopefully that's a good thing.
Do you think so let's talk about personal injury.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it's insanely important. Otherwise, if I don't have someone that has an understanding of the law, it was always said to me, I've heard this said, that you should get a young doctor and an old lawyer, right?
Yeah.
Because the medical field's constantly changing, so you want that guy that's just fresh out. But for the attorney, the law doesn't really change that significantly, so you want that seasoned, that little gray in the hair there.
Yeah.
But do you feel like the personal injury side gets a bad rap?
I do, and unfortunately, it gets a bad rap because some of the players in the personal injury world, and especially in advertising, uh, don't do the right thing and are self-centered and only worried about themselves. And I'll give you an example. It's against lawyer rules for me to go down to the courthouse and get accident reports and just call people
Mm-hmm.
and say, "Hey, I'd love to represent you." That's impermissible by the rules. What's happening now is before an accident report is even created, a person will call somebody that's been in a wreck, and I know this to be true because we've had it happen to employees in my office, and it's just known. And they'll say, "Hey, come down and get this free medical care." And when they get there, they get signed up with lawyers,
Mm-hmm.
and the lawyers dictate what care they get, how much they get. Even if they have health insurance, they don't use it so that they can boost the medical expenses and hopefully get a higher payment from the insurance company. Now, that is not the majority of lawyers, and the majority of people in this market that you see advertised on TV are not those folks. But those folks exist, and they are ambulance chasers, and they create a negative image for the practice as a whole, and it fires me up. There are certain things in law that just aren't right, and that's one of them.
But I'm going to get, along those lines, I mean, the service that's provided as a result, and I understand that, if people are sitting at home and they don't have any negative thing happening in their lives, they don't have any particular association, that, they see all the ads on TV and they go, oh, why are they doing all this advertising? Well, I mean, it goes back to what we were talking about a minute ago, that, there are plenty of people that, don't come from money, or, have things that happen to them, whether it's an automobile accident or, whether they're in a place of business and there's a dangerous situation. And they really don't know. I mean, they wouldn't know, but for, you putting your name out there, other, personal injury attorneys putting their name out there, where to turn and whether or not they have an ability to be made whole, and they can get taken advantage of in that way.
And unfortunately, the insurance companies know that and prey upon it. So I wouldn't have a job if insurance companies just treated people fairly, their own insured or somebody that their insured hit. Personal injury lawyers wouldn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
This every client almost that comes to me, unless they just know and call us first, which happens, they come to us because they get so frustrated with dealing with a claims adjuster who doesn't call them back and makes lowball offers and tries to get them to sign releases to extinguish their case when they're still getting medical treatment. So they are vulnerable. And that vulnerability is one of the things that's super frustrating about lawyers that call and
And is there, and I'm not, and I'm not here to knock anybody, but I think I know is there anything, what do you do to try to kind of overcome that? In other words, I mean, you're not here to tell other people how to do their business, I don't suppose, but at the same time, it, like you say, it kind of makes what you do a little bit harder. Because there are some, and it's like any other industry, right? There's good people in every industry.
Absolutely.
And there's some people that are just after themselves in every industry. And I don't think the legal profession is any different in that regard. It might be a little more forward-facing in terms of what we see about it. But I guess just making people aware, I mean, what would your advice be, I guess would be the question, to people who aren't sure whether or not they're dealing with the right folks?
It's my advice is pretty straightforward and simple. If someone calls you after you've been in a crash, that is not proper. They should not be calling you. You should be the one making the choice of what counsel you seek, whether it's me or somebody else. Anytime you get a phone call post collision,
thank you, Justin.
That's improper.
Right. So I mean that's just kind of a nice rule of thumb, right? That if they're initiating the contact, then that should be a flag.
If they're initiating the contact, you should know as a consumer that they're shady and that their interest is their own and not yours. There are a lot of good lawyers in this town that do what I do. And there are a lot of really good lawyers on the other side of what I do in this town, but there are some that come from different cities just to prey on people because Nashville's growing and we just have more crashes than a lot of other places.
No doubt.
But if anybody calls you post-collision, run.
So when your dad made the decision at some point in his professional career to singularly focus on personal injury,
Correct.
Did y'all ever talk about, or why did he do that?
Money. It's you don't charge by the hour. Most traditional law firms, you charge by the hour and you have a certain rate. It's a contingency fee, so you take traditionally a third of whatever you collect.
Mm-hmm.
My dad is the only lawyer that I've ever heard of that would never, even if the case was completely upside down because the medical expenses were so high, he would never take more of a fee than any of our clients have ever gotten. And that's still true. That will always carry on as long as I own the firm. But he wanted to make more money, and personal injury, there is an opportunity, especially in tragic cases where, like an orthopedic surgeon, all of my big cases have a tragic story.
Right.
And going back to what advice I would give, I think trust your gut. Like when and what I mean by that, when I interview lawyers, paralegals, people that are going to talk, the most important thing that anybody can have on my side of the law is a genuine empathy for other people. We meet people at their lowest frequently. We meet people who have lost loved ones. We meet people that are hurt, that are out of work, that are worried about paying their bills and taking care of their family. And it's our job to be good at law and to be able to navigate them through that situation. But it's also our job to be empathetic and know that, we're trying to help people when they're at their lowest, and they may be jerks sometimes, and they may be pissed and frustrated, and sometimes you just got to take it because you want to do the best thing for them.
Right. I mean, it is. I mean, at its essence, it's a people business, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
What you do,
and reputation business. That I always say, I've been doing this a long time. A lot of my friends and people that I respect are on the opposite side of cases that I have. But the reason that I get good results with them is because if they know your word is your bond and that you're not trying to make them look bad in front of a boss or something else, then they're going to want to pay you as opposed to the jerk down the road who, they have to write a confirming letter after every conversation they have because their word's not their bond.
You mentioned the insurance company component of this.
Yeah.
If I just asked you, Blair, out of the blue, it feels like that system is more broken than ever, especially in the healthcare field. And everybody, in my world, in talk radio, right, we're talking constantly about what to do, and there's some entities that say, well, you need to go to, our friends on the left want to go to a single payer deal where the government controls it all. I think that's a bad idea. And there are other, free market solutions that some on the right want to suggest. It occurs to me, do you have any thoughts on it? I mean, what could make the system better? Because I feel like you're dealing with these folks probably more than most anybody.
I wish I had an easy answer. I can tell you that there are a couple, and they're the ones that we all see on TV, that in dealing with their own insured. So let's say you have X insurance and you get in a wreck, and the other person that hit you doesn't have insurance. So you have to rely on your what's called uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage.
Sure.
They treat you like a dog, and they actually stand in the shoes of the person that hit you. And there are certain companies, and they're not all this way, but there are certain companies, and they're the biggest, that will try to minimize what they pay you and maximize their profits, even though they've taken payments from you for decades or longer. They're going to fight tooth and nail to not give you a dime.
No, it's
but
makes
to
sense.
go back to your question, I mean, I don't think there is a way in a free market without some sort of regulation, which I'm not in favor of, to make them not be bad actors.
Right. No, it's almost inherent within the system.
Yeah.
It's almost an inherent quality of the system. So you, as well known as Durham, the name Durham is, with personal injury law in Nashville, in Tennessee, and really, I mean, all across the country, your name is well known and well respected. It feels like you could have gotten bigger. Y'all could have grown bigger.
Yeah.
I mean, we see a lot of these places. I mean, you mentioned Morgan & Morgan. I mean, they tout themselves as, and they want to tell you that because they're the biggest, they're the best. I don't believe that for a second, but and I'm not knocking them. I don't know any of those people,
Sure.
but you could have grown bigger, right?
Yeah, as a kid, I wanted to. My dad never did, and he owned the firm, and I didn't own a single bit of it. I wanted to grow and had plans on how to do it, but I've gotten to the point. We are now in Bowling Green and in Huntsville, but I'm never going to be a Morgan & Morgan. I've been approached about buying our firm so that there's a group that wants to buy firms like mine in every major market and compete against Morgan & Morgan using AI and collective money pool to advertise. My office is like a family. Most of the people that have been there for a decade or longer. We have 40-something, 42 staff changes here and there. But I enjoy the family element of practicing law. And 40's a lot of people. There comes a time about when you get to 100 in personal injury law where you kind of have to delegate the majority of what you're doing and stop being a lawyer and being a manager. And I may get there. I'm just not sure.
I mean, do you still deal with cases?
Yeah.
So you're not delegating all of those. You're dealing with some of them yourself.
Tuesday of this week, we resolved the largest case we've ever had in our office. I wish my dad was here to see it. I do believe that he did see it, but and this is a great story to remind me of why I do what I do. My client was a 10-year-old little girl who got hurt really, really bad, and is never going to have a life of a normal woman. But in the mediation, she wrote me a letter that said, "You're the best lawyer because you make me laugh. You're the best lawyer because you're going to help us get a house. You're the best lawyer because every time I see you, you're in a good mood. And you're the best lawyer because you pray for me." And so, yeah, I love those touch points.
Yeah.
Admittedly, I only handle our biggest cases. But yes, I love that part of it.
Well, congratulations on the
Thank
case.
you.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
That has to be the side of it that you wait for, right? Is because you mentioned when folks are calling in, when folks are coming in, you're not seeing people on their best day.
No.
I mean, you're seeing people in a lot of ways on their worst day.
Yeah.
And you've got to kind of get through that. I mean, so in a way, you are a counselor, not in the legal sense, but you're more in a counselor in every other aspect of the word, in that you're trying to help them understand, hey, I understand that things are bad right now, but we're going to do what we can to make it better.
Yeah, and sometimes it's never going to get better. I think of a case I had of a family who was driving to the Corvette Museum, and a dad and his wife and 2 kids get creamed. The wife and one of the kids dies. I mean, there's no recovering from that. The only recourse that we have is money. I mean, there's money that can help. Let's be honest, money helps in life to make sure that the loss of his wife's income and all those things are reimbursed to him. But, I think it's important. My favorite job in the world is being a husband and a dad. And, that dad I connected with, whether he connected back or not, in a way of trying to put yourself in those people's shoes.
Is it hard for you personally to? I mean, you go through these. You go through these situations with them.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, does it get hard to kind of shut that down when you get home? see the wife, to when you're visiting the kid? I mean, it would feel that it would be difficult to kind of compartmentalize that.
Yeah, it gets heavy. My son is a freshman in college, and we are as close as I think a father and a son could be, but he doesn't want to take over my firm. He hears the stories and has grown up seeing that level of and to be honest, if you're a successful personal injury lawyer, you're successful because you have cases where people are dead or they're maimed or they're paralyzed or they're hurt for life, and they're not going to recover. So, and I have a daughter who's a sophomore in high school. I don't think she wants to take it over. But yeah, it definitely has an effect. But I think the effect, at least I'm 54, turn 55 next week, at this point in my life has been, it makes me appreciate so much the love that I have with my office and with my family.
So you have 2 kids?
Yeah.
2 kids, and one's off to college?
One's at Denver University.
Uh-huh.
He just finished his first quarter and is home until January.
And so son and daughter.
Yeah.
That's got to be fun.
It's a ton of fun. They're such different kids. He's a theater major and a double major in journalism theater. He went to MBA, did more theater than any kid has ever done at MBA, is really talented, plays the guitar. My daughter is a complete jock, plays basketball at Innsworth.
Nice.
Trains her tail off and wants to play college ball. So
nice.
Yeah.
What? How's Nashville changed? I mean, this is such a load. It's such a soft. I would just throw it up there and let you talk. But I mean, you've been around. You've been here all your life. I mean, in the 4 years that I've been here, it's insane the change that we've just seen in 4 years. I mean, I can't imagine the amount of time that you've been here. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, it's crazy. Nashville was a very sleepy town. And dangerous, quite honestly. You wouldn't go to Broadway 20 years ago after dark. And that the Gulch didn't exist. That was all warehouses and a district that you just wouldn't have a reason to go there.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's grown. I know we're getting an influx of people. I've heard the number 100 people a day move to Davidson County. So far, in my experience, the people that have come here they're fleeing some other in state or entity where maybe it's tax reasons, but maybe it's just because, I have a lot of friends that have moved here from California, and I lived in California, went to law school there. California is broken, objectively.
Mm-hmm.
It's this huge economy that's broken. So the people that move here, it seems like, share in the same values of family and faith, which has been great because that's kind of what makes Nashville. We've always been a town that encourages family and faith and, live and let live.
Well, and it's still the it city, right? I mean,
yeah.
I mean, it's and with that comes its own set of challenges. I mean, traffic. I mean, when Blair Durham sees all the traffic on the roads, does Blair Durham say, "Oh, there's accidents happen"? Is that unfair of me to say?
I may joke about that. No, but I get annoyed just by traffic. I will tell you though, during COVID, when we were all shut down, which to me is ridiculous, but during COVID, I kind of missed traffic, and it wasn't because the courts were closed and nobody was getting in car wrecks. It was just, and maybe COVID's such a wild example just because it was what it was, and it was just a crazy time in our country's history and our cities. But traffic's annoying. I live in Westmead, and so I work in Midtown and come down Charlotte, and it takes twice as long as it used to. But
there you are, dog cussing the Californians and the
New Yorkers.
And the New Yorkers for coming into town. I mean, no, it's funny. In my world, when Mom Donnie was elected and Governor Lee, came out with an announcement, and I thought it was pretty, slick on their part, right? He comes out and he does a video and it says, "Hey, listen, if you're a business owner in New York and you're a little concerned about what's going on there, just to let you know a little about Tennessee." And he kind of listed the things. And, and some of my listeners were like, no, don't tell them to come here. I was like, y'all, they're fleeing from something. They're refugees, right? They're coming here for a better way of life. They're not bringing a lot of that kind of stuff with them, particularly business owners, because I mean they're just getting destroyed in New York and California and other places.
Well, I know the COO of Alliance Bernstein. Their coming to Nashville was very intentional. They looked at several other cities to move their headquarters from, and Nashville checked all the boxes, or more boxes than any other city in the U.S. From a huge, I think they're the largest financial services company in the country. To pick Nashville and now Oracle. From California.
Then how proud are you that, I mean, because you're a part of that. I mean, I understand that it's it's kind of a three-legged stool, or maybe a four-legged stool or five-legged stool, but I mean, you're a part of when you spend your advertising dollar at these various organizations, that's going to benefit them, and and ultimately it will make sure that people know where to go when something unfortunate might happen to them. But you're a part of building what Nashville is and the legacy of your law firm, your dad's legacy and your legacy, solid on that foundation that Nashville's growing like it is. That's got to make you proud.
It does make me proud. And one thing that my dad gave me as a gift was the importance of giving back. And when we started, I talked about how charitable Nashville is in the volunteer state. It is unbelievable how many, being in the community, and I do a lot of community activities and charitable things, not to help me in business, but because I believe it's the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I've said this before, but I feel like I was born on third base, and for me to get home, the best way to do that is by giving back.
Mm-hmm.
But by giving back, I have met and seen the enormous amount of this Middle Tennessee community of people who give selflessly to help the community. I think we saw that with the floods that happened in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
Neighbors helping neighbors, that instantly happened. And that's the spirit of the city, and I am really, really proud and enjoy so much giving back. There are so many great ways to do it.
What do you think, 5 years, I've been doing these Nashville Forward programs, talking to local business leaders, and I ask everybody this. I mean, 5 years, 10 years, we look across the skyline of Nashville. I mean, there's some obvious ways that I think it's going to change, starting with the East Bank.
Yeah.
But what do you hope to see across that skyline?
A baseball park.
It'd be nice.
Which I think is going to happen.
Are you still hopeful?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah?
Yeah, I know some of the people involved in the Nashville Stars. There are two sort of groups that are trying to do that, and they're still really hopeful. So I am too.
I am as well. I mean, I think it'd be great. I think the city's ready for it. It's right for it, right? Yeah. I mean, we'll let Memphis keep basketball for now. For now, Memphis.
Yeah, exactly.
But
we're a Grizzly family.
Yeah.
And we watch and would love to have them in Nashville, but I can't imagine Memphis without the Grizz.
Do you have an opinion about who our new? I came from Georgia, right? So I was a long-suffering. You'll find this very funny, Blair. Long-suffering Atlanta Falcons fan, right? I mean, they give you a little hope, and then they crush all your hopes, culminating with the Super Bowl against the Patriots, which and so as soon as I got to Nashville, I'd never lived in an NFL city, never lived in Atlanta, I lived in the state, obviously, but it's like, I'm immediately a convert, and I declared on the radio. I said, look, I went to school in Athens. I'll always be a Georgia Bulldog. I'll always be an Atlanta Brave. But to hell with the Atlanta Falcons. I'm a Tennessee Titan. And as soon as I said that, they started losing.
Yeah. It's your fault.
Well, maybe. Any thoughts on the Titans, the new head coach, the possibilities? I mean,
yeah, for sure. A lot of people give Amy Adams, the owner, a lot of grief, and she probably deserves some of it. It's hard having an owner that isn't here, that as a fan you feel like they're sort of a third party owner and this is just a business investment. And I think that in reality that's probably true for every NFL franchise, that it is it's definitely business. But 3 years ago we were in the AFC Championship game, and the idea of the NFL is parity. That's why they do the
That's what they want, right?
draft the way they do. We've got 13 players, 13 on the Titans that play as rookies or second-year players. And while we're the worst team in the league, we're also young, and we'll build through the draft. I do have hope. There's some coaches out there that aren't on a lot of people's radars. Tomlin from the Steelers that may get fired, which would be a great hire. There's Saleh. So, yeah, I think you get the right coach.
If Tomlin gets fired, if Tomlin is available, let's put it that way, not fired, but if he's available, I think the entire state of Tennessee should be at his front doorstep.
Couldn't agree more.
Right?
Yeah, and his OC is Arthur Smith, who was the OC here and then the head coach at Atlanta for a brief stint. So it'll be interesting to see if they would both come. And when Arthur Smith was here, our offense was good.
True that.
Yeah.
So, is football from a sports perspective, is that your first love?
Absolutely. Yeah. I grew up lifting weights as a 12-year-old with a poster that said, "You're going to play for the Alabama Crimson Tide." And, absolutely loved it. My son, who's 18, I haven't missed a Titans game when he's been in town, maybe one for illness since he was 10.
Nice.
My dad and my dad had original PSLs to the Titans. I was there for the Music City Miracle. It's awesome. And going back to what you said about Nashville's growth, the idea that people were against us building a stadium in Nashville, to me, is one of the most short-sighted ideas that you could ever have.
Well, you and I were talking right before we came on air with the podcast, and I was asked, my reputation of being a small government guy preceded me, and people said, "Well, you're against spending $500 million of state money for this." I'm like, "No, I don't think I am," and here's why. Our tax rate, and I know some in Tennessee don't want to believe this, but with the lack of income tax, property taxes, I understand Davidson County's gotten a little squeezed, but the rest of our communities in the outlying areas, relatively speaking to other states, very red states, it's very low.
Yeah.
And my thing was, look, one of the reasons, the central reason that we see that, because of the people that enjoy Broadway, they enjoy the amenities that Nashville has to offer. They enjoy the things that come here, like Super Bowl and semifinal championship games and NCAA Final Four and these types of things. And that new facility, my goodness gracious, it's going to be a gem of the Southeast.
Yeah, it's been several years ago, but I laugh thinking about the economic impact that sports has on your town. At one point, we played the Chicago Bears, the Titans played the Bears, and the Preds played the Blackhawks. Every bar on Broadway ran out of beer. All those people are staying at hotels.
These Chicago folks know how to drink.
They know how to drink, but they literally ran out of beer, and that only happened once because you learn, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and it doesn't hurt now. Titans faithful like yourself. You might look around the stadium and get frustrated from time to time. And I admit that I've been at a few games where there's a lot of the opposing fan base, but that's just a byproduct of people wanting to come to Nashville, right?
Absolutely.
And they take advantage. They see on their calendar, wait, we're playing the Titans and we're the Seahawks or wherever. Well, we're going to Nashville, and I just see green.
Yeah, me too.
Right?
Why do you think the NFL expanded to Vegas? Like, they're the same thing. You look at the calendar of what are our away games. Oh, we can do a Vegas trip.
Let's go.
We can do a Nashville trip.
Let's make that happen. Yeah. And just please spend your money wisely or unwisely, whatever. Just spend your money. Well, the next 5 years over on the East Bank, that is going to be an incredibly exciting thing to watch as that pops up and crops up. And, I used to think the Nissan Stadium was big. It doesn't look so big anymore, right?
Yeah.
With that new facility beside it, man, that thing looks absolutely fabulous.
Well, and on that note, in the next 5 years, I think we're finally going to use our river in a way that's fun for the people that live here. I know that they're building a marina next to the stadium where you can get out, kind of like the Brave Stadium, where they'll have shops and hotels, but you can actually boat. So me living in Westmead, I can go out and get on a boat and park at the stadium,
Right.
which is super cool.
Which I mean, and I've gone to a couple of games over in Knoxville, college games, and the way that they utilize the river, and they have their what do they call it, sailgating or whatever they call it, where they all link up outside of the stadium on the river, and I'm thinking, man, this is a great opportunity for the Titans faithful to be able to do that, and they will be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, so before we go, favorite TV commercial, you knew you weren't going to get out of here without me asking you some of this. I mean, you mentioned that your dad, he was the creative on all of these things.
Yeah.
So I'll do favorite first, and then we'll talk about maybe one that you didn't want to be a part of, or if there's one. But
there are plenty.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite?
I guess just for sentimental reasons, the first commercial we ever did together was on 9/11. And
oh, wow.
We did it at Church of Christ Church on West End across from the park. And my dad, it became a joke. It was a 3 Generations commercial where we said in the commercial, your granddad, I wish granddad could see this. And my dad says, I think he can, son. I think he can.
Oh.
Which my dad made me promise that I wouldn't play at his funeral from the moment that happened. Just like because he thought it was cheesy, which from him is saying a lot. Over the years, we had a greased pig running through a house commercial. I was building, and yeah, again, him wanting us to be approachable, but being a lawyer and not a farmer, I was fixing a fence post on a farm, and I'm beating the fence post with a ball peen hammer, and I'm like, guys, this isn't how this really works in real life. So
just go with it. Right?
Yeah, just roll with it. It's fine. But yeah, we did a soap opera series called Coach Foster Fights Back. And it was a 9-part series. Part of it was shot in Malibu. The premise was somebody gets hurt. There's this doctor who was really a girl that worked in our office who knew this medical procedure that was going to heal them. There were some fights and girls in bikinis in Malibu. Tanya Harding was on a sailboat.
Oh, dear.
So, and if anybody ever wants to go look, you can go to our YouTube page, and the vast majority of those commercials are on there. I don't go and look.
You don't go look at them?
Every now and again, but not often, just because they were pretty cheesy. But, girls taking their shirts off at basketball games, cheering for kids on the court.
Well, I mean, and let me tell you, the ones that you have, obviously the funny ones over the years, and the ones that are, I guess, would be described as goofy. But I was talking to my wife about sitting down with you today. And she said, "Well, tell Blair that I don't expect for a 60-second commercial to make me cry on television." And some of those are very tender. I mean, those moments where you're talking to people about out of the horrible tragedy that they've experienced in life, the small victory that you guys are able to help facilitate. And those are the ones that she remembered. And she was like, "Tell Blair I don't want to cry out on a commercial anymore." It's like, okay, I'll tell him.
All right. The worst one we ever did, it only aired for a day. There was a crematorium in Noble, Georgia, that the guy who owned the crematorium wasn't cremating the bodies, and he was chucking the bodies into a lake. And we did a commercial at Centennial Park, and the cutout scenes were people chucking bodies to a lake. And my dad liked to be on the edge.
That's on the edge.
But that was clearly over it, and he realized, and we pulled it. But
so you did it one day?
One day.
And just based on reaction, you're like, we should probably not.
We got more calls that day than we've ever gotten before, and none of them were
particularly positive.
Yeah, none of them were positive.
Well, what's your message to Nashville? I mean, we're speaking directly to people who live here, who work here, who love the area for the most part. I mean, what's the message to them?
Keep loving each other. I mean, Nashville, that's what Nashville is to me. We're kind, we're polite. We still say yes, sir, and no, ma'am to our elders, and we help each other out and live and let live and love each other.
Blair, thank you so much for spending some time with us, talking about your dad, talking about the law firm, talking about yourself and the family, and I just can't tell you how fun this last hour's been.
Yeah, it's been great. I appreciate that.
There's Blair Durham with Durham Personal Injury Law, and we appreciate you being a part of Nashville Forward. And as always, we'll see you next time on Nashville Forward.